Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it. So here's what you get. From Canada.
And from Los Angeles, California.
Ryan.
And Christian.
Welcome to the Worst of the Best podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me today, I have a very special guest, a co-host. I have with me today Christian. Christian, he is the host of the Blackcast and Who Are These Broadcasts, the latter being part of the Who Are These Podcasts universe. Please give a warm welcome to Christian Blatt.
Thank you so much. You got my name correct, which not everybody does, even people I work with. But the show's Who Are These Broadcasters? Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel and available. Fun fact, most people don't know. The show was called Who Are These Broadcasts? But then as it turned out, all the imaging and jingles and everything all said broadcasters. So we're like, all right, that's what it's called. Because I made the point. It's like, well, Who Are These Podcasts? Who Are These Broadcasts? Kind of sounds the same. When you factor in Who Are These Socials, it doesn't matter that it's called Who Are These Broadcasters. So it's fine. It really is Who Are These Broadcasters? I appreciate your support of that show. And I'm very excited to be here today on this show.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. Yeah, I do listen to every episode, even though I got the title wrong. Yeah, so of course, Who Are These Broadcasters? It's a great show, lots of fun. You basically break down weekly news events, and with elections coming up in your side of the world, I'm a Canadian, so I'm very interested in U.S. politics, but I'm not as concerned as maybe some of you guys are. But I love your coverage of the politics down there. It's fun. You guys are doing a great job with that.
We try to go down the middle, but when you play something by a politician that someone in the audience doesn't like, Eric Zane and I get accused of being lib cucks, but then also we get accused of being Proud Boys because, if you play a clip where Trump looks stupid, and there's a couple out there, I don't want to generalize, but there's a couple clips where it's like, oh, this is really funny. Look at what he said here. But then if you play a clip, when Biden was wandering around and almost kissed a woman who's not his wife, but was also a blonde. Yeah. Sometimes people are like, hey, you can't do that. You just go ahead and make fun of the other side. And that's why I think the show works. Because when I first pitched it to Carl, I was like, look, I don't want it to be one-sided, but some weeks it comes off that way. We try to make up for it the next week.
It's whatever the universe gives you. You have no control over that. So I think it's great. I think both Miss Harris and Mr. Trump, I think they both offer a plethora of content for your channel, regardless of what side of the fence you're on. Yeah, it's fantastic.
We've said on the show, we actually don't care who wins. We know that whenever the election is over, we're going to have great videos of people crying and really upset. And we don't care who it is. We're just going to enjoy the videos.
Yeah, it's fun. Isn't that great that politics was turned into podcast content? That's fantastic.
Yep, exactly.
Now, the reason why you're on today's show is one, I asked you. You did not ask to come on. I asked you to come on. You were very kind to accept. Oh, I do want to say you have a partner, Eric Zane, who does the show with you for Who Are These Broadcasters? I thought he was ghosting me. I invited him on. He said yes right away. 3 or 4 days goes by. No response after my response to that, kind of updating what we do on the show, what I expect of him. So I said, hey, any thoughts on, he wrote back again. Oh, sorry, I'm so busy. I'm like, yeah, totally understand. We all have busy lives. So I just want, if you're ghosting me, just let me know. Let me know. That's fine. Cause I don't want to bug you. And I actually said that. I said, if you don't want to go on the show, there's no obligation. He didn't respond for a long time again. And then I reached out one last time. I said, here's some dates that are available. Cause I gave him some dates for September. So now we're looking at October. Cause I didn't hear back from you in time for September. So he wrote back again and he goes, it just isn't working for him right now, which I don't know if that's code that he doesn't want to go on. I think I have a theory. He saw my numbers and he realized that he doesn't want to go on a show that has less views than his podcast, which is fair.
Okay. But legitimately, Zane does a radio show for, I don't know, some corner of Michigan. Then he does his podcast. He does our show once a week, but he's also does in-stadium announcing and occasionally even play-by-play for minor league sports. Also, he's very old. It's hard for him to fit something into his day.
I just thought he saw my numbers and go, oof, this guy gets less than me. There's no way. Yeah. So Eric, you'd be doing me a favor too. And yes, I hope at a later date, yes, we can hook up maybe after the new year. I know it gets busy at this time of year now.
Well, after I tell him how much fun I know I'm going to have,
oh, wow.
I'll start leaning on him. I'll even start suggesting what he should come on and talk about.
Okay. Well, when I invited you on, you accepted. I leave it up to the guest to say, hey, I'd like to do a music episode with you. You pick the artist, and from that artist that you enjoy, pick what you think is their best or one of their best albums. We did it with Kaylee. It was Kiss's Love Gun. I've done it with other guest co-hosts over the years, and I want to give you the same. And I said to you, no matter what, I don't care. I'll listen to it. If I don't know it, I'll listen to it. And you picked 1978, Alice Cooper's From the Inside. And I'm like, wow, this is all new for me, but I was very excited to dive into this. But why don't you just first say why this album? Why did you choose this?
So it is my favorite album, which is very different from saying his best.
Sure.
You also have to, when you look at Alice Cooper, you have to draw the line in the sand after 1974 because it's the Alice Cooper band. It's the guys who started it. Everything he does from 1975 onward is technically a solo album. He legally changed his name to Alice Cooper so he could be Alice Cooper. But before that, the band was Alice Cooper, even though that was the name he used. This, to me, it just blew me away with the first time I heard it. And interesting fact, when I first started listening to Alice Cooper in the very early 1990s, this album was out of print. And it was like completely out of print. Somebody I've gotten to know since, I'm actually going to be producing a podcast with him that I can't plug just yet. But Brian Slagle from Metal Blade Records, he reissued this album, the previous album, Lace and Whiskey, and 1974's Muscle of Love. And they were on CD for the first time, which in 1990, that's what you wanted. But instead, when I first found out about it, I got a beat up secondhand copy of the vinyl. And even with a little bit of hiss and some scratches in it, it's still great. It is a concept album. It is not his first. Most people would probably tell you Welcome to My Nightmare is his best solo album. And it's great. Okay. But I prefer
was that after?
That's before this. That's 1975. That's his first solo album. And it's big. It's got Vincent Price in it. It's got a lot of, they did a TV special. This is based on an experience he had. Alice was always a huge drinker. And as he got more famous, he started drinking lots more. In what would have been 1977, because the album comes out in 1978, there was no Betty Ford clinic. To stop drinking, he checked himself into an insane asylum. And this album is about that experience and the people who were there. I'm sure he changed everybody's name because his manager, Shep Gordon, knows all about likeness rights and, any of that stuff. So I'm sure that every name is different on the album. But he was inspired by the people in that insane asylum for some of the songs on here. The main reason why I said don't read about this album before you listen to it is I wanted to be able to ask you, is there anything about the songwriting that sounds a little bit familiar or like, I don't expect this from Alice Cooper? Is it a general feel or is there anything like that you're thinking?
Yes. Well, I do know who worked on the album.
Okay.
But I will say without even knowing that, the people that worked with him, it did sound like, and I don't think this artist had people working with him that worked with this album, but let me know if I'm wrong because I didn't research this crossover now, but it sounded like a Meatloaf type album.
That's close. There definitely would be like a Jim Steinman sort of vibe.
That's right, Jim Steinman. That's right.
Yeah,
that was the writer.
This album was co-written with Bernie Taupin. This is their one collaboration. And then I when I first heard it, I was like 14. I didn't really think about it. When you listen now, you're like, oh yeah, it's sort of like musically, lyrically, there is definitely some of that Elton John sort of feel to it. It really should have been a tremendous album. It has a top 40 single on it, which we'll talk about when we get to it. It's just this great concept album. I love the songs on it. I won't tip anything off, but going into it, I thought I knew what was the worst of the best. Listening to it the first time, I thought I found a different one, and then I settled on a third one. So it really is like, well, which one of your kids is the ugliest? Oh, I don't know. that's hard. But then when it comes
Wow.
down to it, if you have enough, I only have 2, but if you have 6 kids, you could probably be like, oh, I
Did
know
you know
which
that's how
one's
many
it.
I had? Is that,
No, I
you know?
didn't. No, my mom was one of 6. That's why
Ah.
I said 6.
Yeah,
So-
I have 6 kids. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
funny. That you
Well, I
brought
won't
that up.
put you
Yeah.
on the spot.
No, I
So-
can tell you right now who's the ugliest. No, no, they're all equally beautiful in their own special, unique way. But yeah, that's what makes the show so much fun. Is always the hope, especially when I have somebody new to the format, when they come on with a favorite of theirs or something they consider the best of. It's all subjective, anyways. But the idea being that this is an album that you hold dear over the years, and now you've got to decide, hey, which track? And don't tell me now, of course. Don't tell me till the end.
No.
Which-
I want to
yeah.
say to the end.
Okay. Which track, if it had to be lost forever they just fell off the LP, it could never be returned or heard again, which one of those would you be willing to sacrifice? And so it's tough. It doesn't mean it sucks necessarily.
Yeah.
It depends on the album. Look, I've done some albums on the show where it's been it's almost boring. Some albums can be very easy to pick a bad song, but some are
because
harder than
look,
others.
for me, I don't know about for you, but if we were doing a Beatles album, depending on the
Okay.
album, the first thing I
Sure.
would do is like, okay, which one is the George Harrison sitar song? I'm going to circle that as a strong maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, wait. Yoko's on a track with John. Okay, it's that one. It's very easy to do that. And sometimes it'll be like, oh, I like everything except for the hit single.
Yeah,
So sometimes
yeah.
you can do that. But an album like this that you really love and you think of listening to it in sequence all the time, it is difficult. And that's why I loved the idea for this show and I was happy to do it. But it's even harder with these old 70s albums because they usually only have 10 songs in it. So you're like,
Right.
so you're telling me I'm going to bring this down to a 9-song album by
you have
taking
to.
something. It's 10 songs in 39 minutes already. We're going to get down to 36 minutes, maybe even 35 because we cut something. So
Right.
it's crazy to think about.
Well, yeah, that's the name of the game. So when I first, of course, you told me the album right away. I went to Wikipedia to see when did this album come out, what was the rating by critics, and I was a little bit nervous right away. The ratings from critics were not kind. This is not a very well received critical album. Then I went to YouTube. This is where I ripped the songs. Was from his actual website, his YouTube page. He has the album there and remastered. The comments from fans, obviously, they're going to be fans that are commenting on the YouTube channel. They all almost like without fail not only speak highly of this album, but they sound like you. A lot of them, this is their favorite album.
Yeah. Comedian Don Jameson, I'm friendly with. I believe this is his favorite album as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, because he's a very big Alice Cooper fan. I've been on his show many times talking about Alice Cooper. And it helps that it's sort of an underappreciated one. For your visual audience, I just wanted to take a moment and show off the vinyl. I'm not a huge vinyl collector, but there are albums that personally I want to own the vinyl of. And this one, you look at it, there's his face, and then it opens up and you can see
The characters.
you get to know. And then look right here, that's the entrance to the quiet room. And look who's in the quiet room. Oh boy, poor Alice.
Oh, wow.
He got himself in the quiet room. And then on the back, it has the entrance / exit. And let's see who's getting out. Oh, look, Alice has been
Released.
I don't know, discharged.
It says released
And
on the newspaper.
Don't worry,
Yeah.
I don't mind manhandling this because to point out that it's not a very popular album. This is from the discount bin in the late 70s.
Really?
It's got a big chunk. It's got a big chunk taken out of it. That's how you know. It's actually in surprisingly good shape. I actually am going to get this part out because there's some lyrics that I want to refer to. This is what I love about physical media growing up in the age of CDs,
Sure.
even so, is just having the lyric booklet. When I badly sing along to the songs atonally, I want to make sure I get the words right. So anyway, I just wanted to show that off. And I know audio listeners probably are like, I don't care about any of that. I just couldn't see it. So what do you want me to do with that?
Well, that's fine. They'll be okay. That was only like 90 seconds to maybe 2 minutes, but it's a beautiful, beautiful album cover. I was going to ask you, but you answered that is from the 70s. That's not a
Yeah.
That's
This isn't a reissue. Yeah, I'm sure it has been reissued. Obviously, understanding the fun in that, Kiss albums were always fun because there were always like stickers, or the album you did with Kaylee Love Gun has like a paper love gun in there. Well, it's actually a gun because Love Gun implies it would be a paper something else. Yeah,
really.
So
I never got that.
yeah.
How did you get into Alice Cooper? Because we're the same age. So I mean, I was listening to hair metal, like rock and roll. I was Aerosmith, AC/DC, Metallica, Guns N' Roses. Oh, and I said it before with the Kiss episode. I admit they were the big popular bands, but I was into them. I really enjoyed the rock, glam metal, even grunge. I listened to grunge and hair metal. I was one of those guys. I didn't care. I listened to both. When it came to Alice Cooper, I of course knew who he was. He was a popular culture figure. He was in Wayne's World. Always knew what he looked like. I knew the songs. Was it 18? School's Out for Summer, duh. I knew these songs, but I've never in my life, until you came on the show and me preparing for the show, I've never listened to an Alice Cooper album front to back, song for song, over and over again. So this was a really cool experience to kind of okay, I'm going to objectively listen to this artist because I had some preconceived notions about him. I'm going to go into this with open ears, just like I did for Love Gun, because I had preconceived notions about Kiss. And I'm finding that the same kind of, I bring up Kiss in this because it's almost very similar, because you have the theatrics of both bands and artists, and then you have the music that you're listening to, and it's like they don't necessarily coincide with what you hear audibly and what you see visually. Yeah. If you were just to hear Alice Cooper sing on this album, you wouldn't think this is what he looks like if you didn't know what he looked like.
Yeah, no, I agree. Obviously, that is a big part of it. The concerts, and even, there was no MTV at this time, but there was like a promotional music video for one of the song that was a single. In 1989, he had an album called Trash come out, which has a song called Poison on it.
Great song, by the way. And I love that song.
That's a phenomenal song. I loved that album. That could easily have been my album for this show because it was the first one that I got. Then I went back to the back catalog. And then I had a friend whose dad had this record, and he's talking about this record called From the Inside. I'm like, well, they don't have it. I go to the store and it's not there. I don't know what you're talking about. So I had to do some digging and find it. And then I'm like, this thing's amazing. I did back catalog in about 1989, 1990, worked my way back and just really settled on how much I love the songs on this record.
All right, awesome. Well, there you go. Okay, well, I know it's a big intro, and I appreciate people's, I would say their patience. Hopefully they've enjoyed the discussion before we get into this. Okay, so here we go, folks. This is track 1. So what we do on this show, we should say, if you're the first time listener to this show, what we do is we take something that's the best of, and for Christian, of course, this is one of his favorite albums from Alice Cooper, and like we kind of already hinted at, we're going to pick at the end what we think is the worst or weakest song on the album. Doesn't mean it sucks. It's just not everything's created equal. There's something going to be less than. And then that will be forever erased from the catalog, so to speak. But what we're going to do is we're going to play each track, not all the way through, because, you can just listen to this on your own YouTube or iTunes or Spotify. But just for an audience who doesn't maybe know the songs, because some people do listen to the show, Christian, who don't know the songs we're about to listen to. So it gives them an idea of what we're talking about, the sound, the stylings. And then I usually play another little part in the song that speaks out to me and so forth. And we'll just do that for all the tracks, and we'll share some thoughts about the track after we play the song. Okay. So the first one is the title track, the classic. The name of the album is called From the Inside. And then the first track is From the Inside. Here we go.
On the road somewhere. Was it Texas or was it Canada? Drinking whiskey in the morning light, and I worked the stage all night long. At first we laughed about it, my long-haired drunken friends proposed a toast to Jimmy's ghost. I never dreamed that I would wind up on the losing end. I'm stuck here on the inside looking out. I'm just another case. Where's my makeup? Where's my face?
Right away, when I'm listening to this for the first time, I'm thinking, I'm kind of captivated right away with the piano at the very beginning, thrown off by that. Then the bass line, it's just such a great bass playing throughout. And then Alice's great clean vocals at the beginning. And it's not till like the minute 15 part of the song or whatever, just before the chorus, where you get that little bit of that Alice growl, which we'll hear more throughout this album, but I don't know in his career at this time how much he was doing. I don't know if the Alice Cooper fandom has a term for it, but because he sings a lot of clean lyrics or a lot of clean singing on this album, and then he'll do the growl that he's sort of known for. Not on every song and not all the time. This album showed me, long story short, this album showed me his singing prowess is much more than I anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think his longevity is tied to that growl because he can still do that in his mid-70s fairly easily, and the songs sound the same. He's a much younger man here, and he didn't quit drinking forever after this. Unfortunately,
is he sober now? He
yes.
must be now. Yeah.
But he has 4 albums he did after this that he will say he does not remember recording. He doesn't really know most of the songs on there. First couple he knows a little bit. As it goes on, these next 4 albums, he has an album called Zipper Catches Skin in 1982 and one called Dada in 1983. He's like, yeah, I listened to those. And I'm like, I don't know who made them. He went back to drinking. There's a tremendous documentary called Super Duper Alice Cooper, where it was revealed for the first time that he didn't just drink. He also had a cocaine problem, which he'd never talked about until that documentary. That was the bottom line. So he was okay for a little while, but not very long. Like there's an interview Tom Snyder did with him in 1981. He's very skinny, and you're just like, okay, there's definitely something wrong with this guy. The reason I bring all that up is he didn't really treat his instrument very well. Fortunately, you're the guy who growls a lot, so it's fine. These studio versions of these songs do sound amazing. You're like, no, this guy has his shtick, he has his gimmick, he has his stage stuff, but he can also sing these songs really well. Like especially, this song, the album starts, it does start strong, and then he goes a little bit more into being Alice. It's definitely something that I'm not surprised you noticed just listening to this for the first time,
His makeup, by the way, you're an Alice Cooper guy, so has he always done the eye makeup?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a stretch where he stopped doing it, which was actually when he did that Trash album. He didn't wear the eye makeup for a couple years, and then he kind of brought it back when he got a little bit older. He's had some different looks. He went through a new wave period in 1980. He was trying to capitalize on something different, so he has short hair and a whole different look. He often has the makeup. When they first started, he had different eye makeup, but by 1972, I think he settled on this.
Okay, and I should say, actually, I've seen him live. He opened.
Oh, okay.
I saw him open for Motley Crue during their. Now it's not the case.
They're what they called their farewell tour. Yes,
yeah, it was 2018. Was it 2018? I think so.
Yeah, I forget. Is 2018 sounds right, actually.
Yeah, so I saw Alice open, and he did great, and I enjoyed. Like I said, I knew, of course, some of he played Poison, School's Out, 18.
But when you see him in that setting, he's gonna do songs that you're mostly gonna know.
Yeah, and it was fun. He did the head chopping sequence.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I know it's a trick, I was still watching. I was like, how did he do that? It's very well done.
It's the one time you don't want to sit and you don't want to be in the front row because that's where it looks really fake. But from the rest of the venue, it always looks cool. And him doing these opening or co-headlining like he's doing with Rob Zombie this year. If he does 40 minutes to an hour, you're going to hear those. His standalone shows, he will always dig deep and get one or two for the diehard fans. So in the late 90s, he actually did this song From the Inside. Cool. For people like me, you just lose your mind. There's a few songs that stayed in the rotation for a little while that for earlier this decade, including the next song, which was kind of a fun one, which when we talk about it, I'll talk a little bit about the stage presentation of it.
Not much guitar solo work on this album. I know that's not necessarily the theme of the album to have those guitar solos, but the guitar work though in of itself on a couple other tracks coming up is quite well done. I believe
Dick Wagner, who was kind of a go-to for guys like Bob Ezrin, he actually plays the guitar on Aerosmith's Train Kept a Rollin' because in 1974, Joe Perry was not considered up to snuff. So Dick Wagner's kind of one of those guys. And he plays the guitar in Beth, the Kiss song, their only top 10 hit, by the way. So he's definitely a guy who's been around, but Alice collaborated with him a lot throughout the 70s once he went solo. There's another very recognizable guitarist who's involved in some other songs, which we'll get to when we get there.
Oh, okay. So anyways, great opening track. And it's the title track, strong track. Every now and then I give a spoiler as to not a worst pick. I mean, you'd have to be a moron. I'm going to say that right now. I'd be very surprised if anyone would pick this.
Well, and when you do have a concept album, you got to start big. You got to kind of get into like, all right, like you can imagine, like, I don't know how many musicians you've ever seen do whole album. A lot of times when they do it, they're going to play the first song and then that's when they're going to really talk about it.
Right.
Like I saw Springsteen do his album, The River, which is a double album, and took up like 90 minutes of the show. But when you play 4 hours, you can do that. You know, it's like, okay, you hit that and then you start talking about, okay. So I could imagine, not that Alice would ever do this album in its entirety. This is a great spot to be like, all right, so now we're from the inside and we're going to, you really set the table with this song.
Awesome. All right. Second track on the album is Wish I Was Born in Beverly Hills.
And if she don't scoring fast, she knows that her brother will. Oh, I wish I was born in Beverly Hills. I swear I couldn't drink half as much as she spills. I wanna live it up, get my kicks and thrills, be a gigolo lover and send her the bills, yeah.
It's a great intro to this.
Yeah, this is a song that he also started playing live within the last decade or so. His daughter, her name is Calico Cooper. She was a big part of the stage show at one point, and she would come out and basically be Paris Hilton as part of this song. It was sort of part of the whole vibe on stage. Alice Cooper lyrics are a big reason of why I became a fan so quickly. You played it, but the turn in this where he says, and she wants her mother's lover to exercise her skill. And if she don't score him fast, she knows that her brother will, which, 1978, you're saying something very specific that maybe you might not have said in 1978. I don't live in Beverly Hills, but I could drive about 20 minutes and be there. Well, 40 minutes, let's be honest, because of traffic.
Right.
He definitely gets the vibe of even decades later. That is kind of what it feels like. Yes, this is talking about that lifestyle at a time where I think people were probably mostly enamored with it. This is before we had any Real Housewives. This is really the original Real Housewife is, I guess, Alice's wife, Cheryl, who was like, look at all these crazy people. Yeah. And again, inspired by somebody that was there in the insane asylum with him.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense. So yeah. Probably some housewife drinker of some sort. Yeah. Probably. I got the feeling he's singing about a female. I don't know why.
Yes.
I get that.
The first line is she looked so sleek and sassy. And that is who he's singing about. Yeah.
Okay. It's a fun song. Right away, you got 2 songs in a row. Bang, bang. So when I'm listening to this for the first time, I'm thinking, boy, here we go. This is a good, fun rock album. It's got a little bit of that glam rock with theater. And I should mention, halfway through the album, I'm thinking to myself, this should have been a Broadway play.
Yes.
All these songs could have easily just been, this could have been I guess it's never too late to do this, but I'm surprised this hasn't been turned. It's very like Rocky Horror Picture Show-esque behavior and feeling to it. You got your debauchery, you've got your drugs, you've got your crazy characters, and you've got your great chorus and especially the closing song. You have this very theatrical, to me, we're listening to a Broadway soundtrack.
Yeah, and he did a tour for this album, and it was recorded, I think, for a television special. But you can get it. I almost said on VHS, but you could get it on VHS, and then it was released on DVD. The Madhouse Rock Tour. And here's what I will tell you about him touring for this album. By the time his album about getting clean and not drinking anymore, by the time he toured it, he was clearly drinking again because he sounds awful. He's never sounded worse than he does in that show. And yes, it could have been a bad day, but you had all the cameras there and everything, so you still got to record it. I don't think that was an isolated incident. That could have eaten into it a little bit, but to be fair, the album was not successful. I agree, though. Oh man, this would have been quite a stage show. I would have loved to have seen that.
Well, Alice, it's not too late. I mean, maybe he's not up to snuff to sing quite like this album does, but you can hire some young stars to perform it. So I'd see that for sure.
I'd say he could easily do half of the songs on this. The vocals definitely going to be a little bit different. There's a few, though, that I think aren't really in his present day range.
The classic fade out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's making the rounds on memes right now, which is kind of funny. About the how do we end songs in the 70s? You got to fade it out. So
I know you're usually listening and you go like, oh man, there's probably another great minute that we never heard. You
hear that soul there. It keeps going. No, keep it up. I want to hear that soul.
I know. I want more of that. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, it's a great ending solo. So another great guitar work.
More Dick Wagner on that track. Yeah.
So yeah, right away you're like, oh, 2 rockin' tracks, we're good to go here. And I admit when the third song kicks in, I was like, oh, okay, we're slowing things down just a little bit. When I heard this album again for the first time, even the second or third time, my initial response was, boy, there's 5 great songs and 5 that are too slow or too whatever it is. I'm not gonna say this is my picks or not. I'm not hinting at that necessarily. I'm just saying once I started like enjoying the theme, the stories, and just looking at it as a whole movie, so to speak, that yes, the action sequences might be the fast-paced songs and the slower songs are the narrative. And so when I kind of approached it in that style, I was much more, not forgiving, but I allowed myself to enjoy the slower songs much more. Now, The Quiet Room was very easy to get into fairly quickly of the other 2 or 3 that are a little bit slower, because this one, you're talking about the lyrics, the brave lyrics, the lyrics that he says and sings in the song. I don't know if anyone sings this today that's not a death metal band. These are death metal lyrics in a ballad of 1978. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, to say that The Quiet Room knows more about me than my wife, but also I just can't get these damn wrists to bleed
because he doesn't have any instruments in the room. He doesn't have any instruments in the room to cut himself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this song definitely works as a quiet song. And by the way, his albums usually, especially his solo albums, will have a couple of slower, quieter songs. Okay. We did his album Alice Cooper Goes to Hell. We'd have to throw out one song because there's a cover of I'm Always Chasing Rainbows on there. So there's always stuff like that on there. So, but what I was going to say about this one is that it then does have that part. They've got this place where they've been keeping me the part, the rock part. You know what I mean? So you have the balance of this song makes the quiet part of The Quiet Room work so much better. Absolutely. Because you're trying to capture this guy who has the turmoil, the guy who is actually sitting in the quiet room on the album that is very hard to show sometimes.
There you go.
But, there it is. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. Here's the intro to Quiet Room. I do want to ask you, who's doing that?
That's a great question. Now, there's a song on side 1 that I did look up who that is. So there's a number of backup singers listed, Let me see what I can find for this song if you
Okay,
want to
sure.
go back to it, because there's a lot of people that are listed as what they call the totally committed choir, providing backing vocals. And they
Okay.
include people who you're going to know, like Kiki D, Flo and Eddie, aka the Turtles, and his wife Cheryl. But on the Quiet Room, I don't know if it doesn't actually say who that is specifically.
It's not Alice. Like, no offense. I don't think it doesn't sound like his tone.
No, it's definitely not him. Yeah, that's for sure. There's a song that they specifically credit who the singer is.
The California air, your nightgown on the stair. I remember every night, scenes from home in the quiet room. How long have I been gone? Did winter kill the lawn? And all those Polaroids you sent are on the wall in the quiet room. They've got this place where they've been keeping me, where I can't hurt myself, I can't get my wrist to bleed, just don't know why.
Okay, well, I hate pausing it. I said this before when we were doing the Love Gun album. I have to pause it, or else we'll just play the whole song.
At
But,
some point, you have to stop it. Yes, I
yeah.
get it. Yeah.
like you're saying, you got that very quiet, calm intro, almost like he's at peace being in the room, and then he's like getting angry. First, it's maybe the denial, depression, and
Yeah.
now he's angry. It's like, oh, this freaking room. I was going to suggest to Alice next time he gets locked up in a quiet room with Polaroids. Those Polaroid picture, you can break them up. They get pretty sharp edges. You could probably do some slicing with them. Maybe the Polaroids could.
You know, that's a great point. If he gets locked up again with Polaroids, I think that it's good advice.
Give it a whirl. Give it a
Give
whirl.
it a
You might
try.
be surprised. It mentions in the lyrics, he doesn't have laces. He doesn't have anything to hurt himself, to hang himself. Epstein should have had this room, I think is what he's saying.
Yeah, Epstein needed was to have a room somewhere near a camera that stayed turned on. But yes,
that too.
yeah. So yeah, there's plastic forks and spoons, no laces in my shoes.
That's
But
right.
there's also a descriptive line that didn't stick in my head when I was going to revisit it. But hearing just the moth-stained naked light is such a great descriptive. Obviously, two very talented songwriters on here. Dick Wagner also co-writes all three of these first songs, by the way. He co-writes a lot of the songs on the album. The lyric is literally, just don't know why suicide appeals to me. It is a very vulnerable song. Anybody trying to deal with any of the things, any of the people that he talks about on this album, I can see at some point considering, ooh, why am I still here? Yeah, it's a very dark overall theme here for a rock and roll record.
I think we kind of mentioned it, but yeah, we did mention that it is autobiographical, even though regarding his drinking, his problems with substances, and the characters he met. But this song in particular is just even more personal about his own personal feelings of self-harm, all these other things in his mind that he wants to do to himself. For 1978, I don't know how many rock singers were singing about mental health issues and the struggle of mental health. Maybe they were. I don't know.
Billy Joel's Captain Jack, I think, is still a couple years away at this point, which he's not singing about himself, allegedly. The interesting thing, of course, is if you had interviewed Alice at this time for the album, he would immediately distance himself from anything vulnerably, like, oh, no, everything's a character. And he would be lying. He always had to have sort of keep you well at arm's length. And when you have that's my Alice Cooper stage persona. I'm the guy who goes on Hollywood Squares, The Muppet Show, and plays golf.
Quick question for you, not to go too much off on a tangent here, but I think he was 31 at the time of this album.
There's a quote on the album from the film Harvey, which is based on a book. It says, "I've wrestled with reality for 34 years, and I'm glad to say that I've finally won out over it." So I wonder if he was 34 at the time. But here's the beauty of having this device in front of me. I can find out exactly what year he was. Interestingly, he is exactly 30 years when this is released. So he's 29 when he's there because he was born in 1948. Yeah,
Okay,
he
well,
packed a lot into those first 29 years.
That's what I was going to say.
Don't worry, he packs plenty more in the next 5, and
Yeah.
honestly, the 40 since. So
Well, that's what I find fascinating. This is what's considered his 4th studio album.
8th or 6th or 8th or 10th album overall, I forget, but yeah, 4th solo album, correct.
So he went from Alice Cooper the band to Alice Cooper the solo artist, is my understanding. But he was called Alice Cooper. Wasn't his name in Alice Cooper Alice Cooper?
Yes, so his onstage persona was always Alice Cooper, and then they decided to call the band Alice Cooper, but Alice Cooper as an entity is him and the other 4 guys that were the band.
Why did the band disband and then he continued the moniker Alice Cooper as a solo act?
I believe there were substance issues, but also he was always the guy way out in front. You start to resent that because they would write songs, but then he would have to go back into the songs and kind of make them a little bit more Alice Cooper-y. So the last album that the band does is Muscle of Love in 1974. Then he does Welcome to My Nightmare, a solo album the next year. And it's a very different sonically. The production on it is great. It's a fantastic album. They were all definitely rock records. Well, at least the first 2 albums he does are terrible. Pretty's for You and Easy Action are awful albums. They were released on Frank Zappa's label. So his albums in 1969, 1970 are not good. I think most people will say that they're not very good. But he has an album called Love It to Death that comes out in 1971 that has I'm 18 and a bunch of other songs. That
was the band song.
So those are the band songs. Yeah, so School's Out is the band, Elected, which is another big song. That is a band song as well. The success is with the band. So the other guys in the band do a band called $1 Billion Babies, which is his 1973 album. Great song of the same name. Basically right up there. If anybody's ever listened to The Doors' Other Voices, the album they did after Jim Morrison died, $1 Billion Babies is kind of a very similar vibe. You're like, oh wait, I know exactly what's missing from every one of these songs.
Alice Cooper?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Now that's where that comes from. I had no idea.
Place. It ain't so new to me. It's haunted atmosphere. Has heard so many scream. My home from home. My twilight zone. My strangest dream. My confidant. I have confessed my life. The quiet room knows more about me than my wife.
Yeah, I just love that part. It almost sounds like he's crying. The way he sings that last part, he's wailing. It's awesome. It's performative and it's emotional. I love it.
I agree. I referenced that lyric earlier because it has always stood out for me. The quiet room knows more about me than my wife.
All right, so after that very serious, almost depressing, Alice is like, okay, guys, don't worry. I'm still the fun party guy. I like to have a little bit of fun. So time to lighten up the mood a little bit on this concept album. Here we go with Nurse Rosetta.
I'm a ship for the Pentecost. I got my scriptures and my wires crossed. I got no kids and I got no home. They want us holy men to live alone. Since I've been here for a little stay, I see Rosetta day by day. She turns my head, makes me cough. I wanna tear my collar off, and I just can't sleep at night. Rosetta dressed in white. She got the devil's light shining in her eyes.
Yeah, so here we go. He's got the hots for the nurse. Fair enough.
Yeah, and obviously we're only a few years removed from the film version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, so he's
Think of the
definitely
same
embracing
thing, yeah.
some of that. Yeah, if you like the guitar in this song, It is co-written by Steve Lukather from Toto. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Oh,
Yes.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I saw it in the additional musicians credit on my album, and I tried to pick it out. Somewhere on this album, you have Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick, but I don't actually know what song it is. They weren't about,
Oh.
I guess, giving credit in that way at that time. It's not like, guitars on this song. Now, some of it, they do tell you, like vocals on this song, this on that song, but I actually don't know what Rick Nielsen does. And I've heard this album, hundreds of times in my life. So somewhere in here, there's a dash of Cheap Trick sprinkled in.
Okay. I hope people in the comments on YouTube in particular, because you can't really comment on the audio. So on YouTube, let us know. Tell Christian where he can find that for sure.
Yeah, let me know. I'm on social media at Christian DMZ.
Nurse Rosetta, I won't let her catch me peering down her sweater, fantasizing silk suspenders on her thighs. Nurse Rosetta, make me better. Secretly my eyes undress her. Let me feel your tongue depressor. I'm suddenly twice my size. My pants are all wet inside.
It's like, hey, Alice, you 14 again? What's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. That is always a part that stood out because I love that descriptor. The first part, I'm suddenly twice my size.
It's pretty impressive.
pants
Twice
are all
my
wet.
size.
Wow.
I wish.
I mean, you'd have to see Nurse Rosetta, I suppose.
I guess
By the way,
so.
a Marvel Comics tie-in that came out in 1978 about this that features some of the characters, and I did look for it. I moved literally 2 years ago, and I still can't find everything, so I couldn't put my hands on it. But you do get to see a lot of these characters
Is
interact.
Nurse Rosetta drawn accordingly, or?
Yes, she looks
Oh.
exactly the way. Whatever you have in your head, that's actually what she looks like.
All right, we'll have to look it up online and see if I go twice my size. Okay, I do enjoy the ending of this song.
Liquor nylon seams like a hungry cat with cream. Oh, what a vivid scene.
Now, his vocal styling right there, those last
Yeah.
three lines. Do you ever listen to Guns N' Roses?
Oh yes,
Okay. Use Your Illusion 1, The Garden.
that song always stood out for me. I love that song because Axl sings it with Alice. Yes.
That's right. Because what happened was, I'm a Gene nerd. So Alice Cooper guest vocals on the song The Garden, because during the recording, Mike Klink, the producer, and or the bandmates were like, when Axl originally sang that part, but they said, you sound just like Alice Cooper. Why don't we ask him to sing the part where you sound like Alice, or else you might be accused of just sounding like Alice Cooper, because he
Right.
was singing the part like, dude, that sounds like Alice Cooper. So can we just ask him to guest vocal? And Alice does a wicked job on that song. It sounds amazing.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine being featured on one of the best-selling rock albums of all time. Probably was an easy yes. I know he's
Sure.
on one song and he's featured. He had worked with those guys before. Individually, yeah, I think on that Trash record. If you want to bring up an image that I just shared, I at least have the cover for what is Marvel Premiere number 50. And you can see you can see Nurse Rosetta's face. But
Oh, wow.
that's the
I
cover
didn't
of
know
that.
she was black.
Yeah. That's maybe not what you were thinking, but inside the pages, she's very Foxy Brown, let's say.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Wow.
Okay. And I just want to share the last part of the song. Just that vocal part, though, was same tone and timbre of the Garden scene. So I don't know if they got that part from, I'm sure they
Yeah.
listened to this album, but boy, they were like, boy, you sound just like Alice there. Because it's almost the same cadence styling as what I'm getting at as the Garden. It's the same way, very Alice Cooper-y type style singing there. The way he vocals out of the song, I love it.
And I can't hold back no more. I know I can't hold back no
So I love that vocal work. It's cool. This song, let's be serious, it's kind of silly. It's got juvenile lyrics, juvenile imagery, and all that other stuff. And even the beginning part of the song is kind of like, it's this weird funky funk music. I don't know how to describe the sounding of it's just different. But then I wouldn't say it's saved by the end, so I don't want to spoil anything here, or not save. I'm just saying the ending really kills it for me. I love it. I love the way he vocals out. That's such a cool sound. It's like, oh, that's cool how he just yells, I can't take no more. I mean, even he's talking about still the sexual fantasies he has. I don't care at this point, but I just love the outro of his vocals is so cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he shows a lot of range, which maybe a lot of people weren't expecting from him. You diving into this for the first time is probably not what you thought you would hear. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you do it in the studio because you keep doing it until you can get it right. And part of the reason why this album always works so well for me is the range of music styles within the same songs with throughout the album, and also his different vocal approach to sometimes, like again we said, in the same song.
All right, the last song on side one is Millie and Billy. Very convenient that their names rhymed, when they met each other.
Yes.
Who would be your female equivalent for rhyming name?
Christian and Tristan, except that's a man's name. So
it's Tristan. Well, nowadays
you could be. It depends on how you pronounce your name. You could be Ryan and Diane.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. Ryan and Diane. Yeah, you can almost get. That's not bad. So here we got Millie and Billy.
I wonder, why are we insane? Will we ever get better? Will we stay the same? Billy, I'm worried.
Millie, don't worry, no one knows our pain. Being in love is crazy, not alone that way. Oh, I know you're worried today.
God made love crazy so we wouldn't feel alone. He was thinking of us, he was thinking of us. God made love crazy so we wouldn't feel so alone.
I love the line that God made us crazy so we wouldn't feel so alone. That's just a great.
Yeah, it's a fantastic turn of phrase. There's a lot that I like in here. The verse that is, I don't know if you're going to play it, but Billy, my mind seems to wander to events of a night long ago, driving along with our guilt well concealed in the trunk of your 68 olds, and just very specific lyrics about how he clearly helped her kill her husband, and then they ran off. And Billy, I dream of our children. They're frightening and gruesome and sad, and I don't want them growing inside me. They're no prize for the love that we had. So there's the guilt that they've created children and brought them into this world. This song, the lyrics were so much stronger than I remembered, having not heard it in a little while.
Sure.
And the female vocal, her name is Marcy Levy or Levy, but I assume Levy. You would recognize her from Lay Down Sally, the Eric Clapton song. She has she's featured in a number of other songs, but I think that's the biggest one, is being in Lay Down Sally. It's probably, that was only like the year before this. So I'm assuming that that's where they knew, like, hey, let's get her,
Okay. Yeah, she did a few guest spots. She actually had a solo album that came out shortly after this, and it did not do well. It didn't do very well, and she was dropped by her label, and I think she's done some more recent stuff, but that's, it is what it is.
This moment in time, she's perfect for this duet. I think the vocal is so much stronger than I had remembered it, because I love this album and I do listen to it periodically, but it had been a little while since I'd listened to it all the way through. The lyrics being so much stronger than I remembered, and her vocal just in my head didn't sound this good. And I'm like, oh no, she's fantastic.
Okay.
Again, maybe it's listening to the scratchy, skippy, hissy old record. Maybe that's what did her a disservice in my mind. Well,
maybe this is what we're listening to now. Of course, it's not going to transfer as well once people hear it on YouTube, or because it's going to go through some processing when it gets uploaded. But I downloaded the official high quality remasters from Alice Cooper's YouTube channel. So here, we'll play a little bit more of the song, and then I'm going to go near the end.
Billy, my mind seems to wander to events of a night long ago. Driving along with my guilt well concealed in the trunk of your 68 olds.
Millie, I was in asylum, and our minds, like you say, ain't that straight. But you know and I know our passions not deformed. It's true, I say we love our lifetime.
You know who also reminds me of, and I wonder if Oliver Stone and Quentin Tarantino got any kind of. We know it's based on Bonnie and Clyde type relationship, but I wonder Natural Born Killers. I see more of that than Bonnie and
Yeah,
Clyde.
I could also imagine both of them hearing this song, when they were younger and maybe not even realizing they filed it away. But yeah, that's a great call. It's a very Natural Born Killers vibe. You have to also consider in 1978, people listening to this romantic duet where they're glorifying the murder that they committed. You with your pickaxe and scissors, and you with your shovel and gun. And I liked your late husband, Donald. But such torture his memory brings. It's very descriptive for the time, but obviously Alice had been around for a while at this point. So nobody should have been surprised. But it's again sort of one of the reasons why I always enjoyed his work so much is you take those lyrics and you put them here in this setting of, like, if you didn't speak English and you heard these two people singing, it's like, oh, this is one of the sweetest songs I've ever heard.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by the Natural Born Killers, is they were
of course,
totally devoted in love with each other, but they're committing heinous crimes. That juxtaposition between the love that they have and the sweetness that they have for each other, underneath of it all, they're murderers, they're killers, and they lead destructive lives. And it's very well done to have it like this.
Guess love makes you do funny things.
Oh, Billy,
Oh, Millie, criminally insane. Whoa, Millie.
oh, Billy.
And then the outro is, what do you call it? You can hear the what's the term I'm trying to find in my mind here? Like things are going out of control. It's a spiraling sound.
Yes, it's definitely a sort of a spiral.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the clip that you played is almost right after what I just said. There's a line in between, which is talking about her late husband, Donald, all sliced up and sealed tight in baggies. Again,
Oh wow! They really
another
went to town.
example. Yeah, they really want to make sure. Hey, in case you're not getting it,
He's dead. Seriously,
Yeah.
he really
Yeah.
is dead.
this is a post Texas Chainsaw Massacre world, so I think
Sure.
people are getting that pre-Halloween, the film. Once we crossed over the threshold of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, hacking people up and putting them into baggies, I guess was part of the lexicon.
So yeah, that's a great song to end side one on LP. Like if you bought this, of course, in 1978, you bought an LP. You take it out, you flip it. And I'm wondering, for a first time listener, this was the case for me, because even when I was listening to this, I was on my iTunes while I'm jogging. I knew this was side two, so I'm trying to treat it like that in my brain.
Yeah.
Like, what would I experience by flipping this LP? And I got to say, they nailed what you need to do here. You kind of have to start side two sounding just like this.
This is also Steve Lukather again, the guitar
Okay.
on this. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. And that's the Total guy, right?
Toto, yeah.
Oh, cool.
When I'm the back at my time at the track, and I played and I played and I played and I shooting the craps at the back of that Jack's. Come on, fade me, Jay. I'm a Las Vegas dreamer that took to the clean as a vamp with a vamp with a vamp to take. A fish on a hook, I was rattled and shook 'cause I lost my stake. I took that serious. All of my life was a laugh and a joke and a drink and a smoke, and then I passed out on the floor. Again and again and again and again and again.
Well, I didn't want to stop that either, but that's a
That
great
is a good,
chorus.
that's a good spot. Yeah. This is another one that he started performing live within the last 10 years. It was
okay.
it's one that blows your mind because one, it's a great song, not a particularly well-known song. I think that this is you drop the needle on side two. And yes, like you said, let's really tear into something. You wouldn't have wanted to start with the next song. This is a great choice for the
Yeah.
beginning of side two. I love the refrain. I love the style where he's singing so fast. Everything about the song works for me.
The idea that he's just doing this again and again and again and again. It's just over and over again. He's falling on the floor. He's so drunk. Now, I want to ask, was he sober during this recording session?
I would believe that, yeah, because he gets out and he's like, I've got a great idea for an album. Getting together with Bernie Taupin, I think that they knew each other. He talks about this in the documentary. They both drank a lot and probably both enjoyed some substances in their day. So, you know, he has a sort of a band that's like a super group now, Alice does, called the Hollywood Vampires. Which,
right, that's right.
But there was a group called the Hollywood Vampires on the Sunset Strip that were just Alice, John Lennon, Harry Nilsson, and some other Jim Morrison at one point. It was just the guys who could drink just an insane amount and keep going. I assume that he was in the orbit of Bernie Taupin, but I do think he's like, I have this great idea for an album, all these crazy characters, literally crazy characters. That's not even what I meant. Yeah, I think that he was as sober as he'd probably ever been since he'd been a recording artist, in all honesty.
Now, it's interesting, Bernie Taupin, he was only 28 during this. So it blows my mind. So he got 28-year-old Bernie and 29-year-old Alice making this. Like, that's young to me. I don't know if it's young to you, but that just seems like.
Oh no, it's very young. Yeah, and I mean, this is 1978. Like Alice, he'd already had tremendous success with Elton John.
What's crazy. That's what's crazy to me is the amount of success that working with. I've worked with Elton John. Now I'm working, and he's not even 30 yet.
Yeah, not throughout in the album, but Elton's guitarist Davy Johnstone and bassist Dee Murray are also featured on this. So he was able to bring along some friends from Elton. Yeah.
Bernie's had 1, 2, 3. He's on his 4th marriage, but he's been married so far to his 4th wife for the past 20 years. So it looks like he's
all right. It looks like that one stuck. Okay.
Yeah, and she's a lovely woman, by the way. A little bit his junior, but they've been together 20 years. So good for him. Bless his heart.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
That's a great bridge. With the sound effects, the backup singers, Alice is singing, the guitar rhythm. It's just, some people were saying on the YouTube comments that this song was almost considered a filler. I think that's crazy.
I mean, that's crazy talk. I don't know who would say that. It's one of the best songs on the album.
Oh yeah,
it's such a tremendous song. The guitar work, lyrically, there's a reason why you can dust off a song like this from an album that didn't sell well and play it in like 2012. I'm glad that he did that because this was always a favorite of mine.
All right. So the next track is, of course, we've kind of talked about this already. This was the number 12 on the Billboard charts.
Correct.
And this is one of these songs where lots of rock and roll, metal, Metallica's like Nothing Else Matters is a good example where a band can have a soundscape that's not really. A lot of these artists that you and I grew up with, a lot of them, it's a very male-driven fan basis, and often if you go to a live show, it was the girlfriends of the guys that were going to the show. Like if you saw a girl at the show, it'd be very rarely the girl. No offense to the girls, but they wouldn't know every song the way the guy did. They were often just the dates of the guys, and so they'd have a song. But every band, like again, Metallica, one of my favorite bands, they have Nothing Else Matters. They play that, and all the girls bring out their phones and lighters now because that's their song.
Sure.
But then you play Fight Fire with Fire. That's for the guys, right? So
the ladies aren't there for Whiplash, Ryan.
Yeah, they wouldn't know. Yeah, don't get me started on Metallica.
Alice, as a solo artist, had tremendous success with ballads. So on Welcome to My Nightmare, there's a song called Only Women Bleed. Lita Ford covered it at one point.
That's right. Okay, yeah. That's why I've heard it. Okay,
but
fair enough.
The next album, Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, has a song called I Never Cry, which will periodically be, in the set list. He's usually killed a nurse on stage who may or may not be Nurse Rosetta, depending on which tour you see this happen on. So he always has those songs. And there's one on the previous album, Lace and Whiskey, which if you'll just humor me, I have to remind myself what it is, though. This was really just more of the same, though, having it. You and Me, which is the ballad from Lace and Whiskey, which if you really want something fun, you'll find Alice Cooper singing You and Me to Miss Piggy when he was on The Muppet Show.
Oh, cool.
So,
I'll take a look at that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's awesome. How Are You Gonna See Me Now is the next track. This is the ballad, slow song. This is one where, if you are 1978 housewife, Peggy, 35, going to the grocery store, you turn on the radio to buy groceries for the kids. This comes on, you're not going to turn it off. It crosses those demographics is what I'm getting at. That's all my way of saying that this song doesn't offend anyone of any age, stage, or whatever part. This can be on the radio, very radio friendly. The hope it always is with any radio friendly song is, hey, I like this performance. Maybe I should check out other stuff from this artist.
Right.
I'm sure that happened with this album.
Well, and for people that of a certain age, like we're talking about, this would be considered probably an AM radio hit. You would have sort of more singer-songwritery, what in my mind, I think of as the Bless the Beasts and the Children sound, which the title song from that film. A lot of ballads from the 70s all sound like Bless the Beasts and the Children to me. And it's not always a great thing, but this is the last single that Alice Cooper had that charted until 1989's Poison. So he puts out albums between those two. But
he did put out a few. Yeah.
Dear darling, surprised to hear from me. Bet you're sitting drinking coffee, yawning sleepily. Just to let you know, I'm gonna be home soon. I'm kinda awkward and afraid. Time has changed your point of view. How you gonna see me now? Please don't see me ugly, babe, 'cause I know I let you down in oh so many ways. How you gonna see me now? Since we've been on our own, are you gonna love the man when the man gets home?
Okay, so hey, Barry Manilow, is that you? Like, I mean, who would have known this is Alice? Like, come on, seriously.
Yeah, the line that I like the best in this song that I always thought that made it stand out maybe from other songs that are similar to it is the idea of please don't see me ugly. Obviously, somebody that you're with is going to really know who you are and they can actually see you ugly. As we're talking, I wanted to bring up, this is from the video that was released, which they were just promotional songs at that time. So it's basically the song that we just heard, but it's from the point of view that he's trapped there in the quiet room. And then this is the lady that he's writing to, his wife there. Before MTV, that era of music videos is kind of fascinating because I'm like, I don't know who was going to see this. They cast children in it. They have multiple sets. Where's the budget for this? What is this for? Did they show this on American Bandstand or something? I have no idea. But the idea was you're going to get this out to a bigger audience. And it worked because they did chart from an album that didn't sell well. This song, is not top 10, but I think you said number 12.
Yeah, number 12. And no, so this is the footage we're seeing on our YouTube. Can't recommend enough, guys. If you're listening on the audio version, click on the YouTube link provided in the show notes so you can see what we're talking about. But yeah, it's playing like a music video. Was this filmed in 78? Was this this?
Yeah, this because you had as far as I know, the Doors were the first ones to do it. They didn't want to perform on shows, so they would just film something and turn in the film clip. Obviously, the Monkees, it was easy because they had it from their show. So you did get these, service to music shows. Like I use American Bandstand as the example because it's the only show that I know. Like Night Flight wasn't even on at this point, so I don't know what show it would have been. Now in Canada, there might have been something different, but I just know that there were shows, probably local shows, where you might show music videos. Sometimes, you you might interview the artist around it. But there's this very goofy part when he gets out and he's running to whomever this lady is. His wife in the video, by the way, is not his real wife, Cheryl, who is a part of a lot of his stage shows, but that's not her in this video, as far as I can tell.
Was he trying to be corny? Because it was really corny.
Yes.
Okay.
I do believe the fantasy that he has of running and
I
finally
see.
getting out to see her. The video makes me think that he never gets out, actually. So,
I see.
yeah.
Oh, he's still a Looney Tune. I see.
Yeah,
It's fun
right.
stuff. Yeah, good. That's
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly. So,
All right.
so it's worth it, especially, if we're doing an album from the 80s or especially the 90s, the fact that there's videos, it shouldn't come as a surprise, but there is this video for How You Gonna See Me Now, which of the songs that I that I listed earlier, I probably prefer You and Me of his ballads. But I Never Cry is a great one too. This was really just marketing, trying to be like, well, we got to get one of those on here. And look, it worked to some extent. There are far more objectionable ballads on rock albums in the 70s. So
Sure. Yeah, sure. It's a business. We get it.
Yeah.
Again, Metallica, my favorite band. I know what that song did for them. I know what that album did for. I'm happy. Look, I always say I'm happy Black Album exists.
yes.
It's just one of my least favorite albums. The album gave them longevity where I can enjoy them today. Great. But it's one of my least favorite albums. So I recognize what it did for them.
Last summer, I went to the 2 dates of the
Me too.
Repeat
Which
tour. The SoFi Stadium, the football stadium here in LA.
Nice.
Without the Black Album, they're not doing one day at a football stadium, let alone 2 and the same weekend.
I saw them here in Montreal for those 2 nights. So it was my 8th and 9th time to see them live. If you want to consider
Excellent.
both. Yeah.
Well, my favorite time seeing them was still, I think that it didn't do so well in Montreal was when they toured with Guns N' Roses and Faith No More.
You saw the fire
Yeah.
accident? You saw it?
I'm talking about it wasn't as successful in Montreal. I saw them twice
Oh.
in New Jersey. Yeah.
I had tickets for that. So yeah, I was in Vancouver at the time. So long story short, I'm from Victoria, born and raised there, and I more or less live and work there still.
I see.
So I go to Vancouver for all my shows growing up. James got injured in Montreal. Of course, Vancouver was at the last leg of the Canadian tour, and I still have, I think, somewhere in my possession, the Faith No More Metallica GNR ticket stub that never got used.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
Yeah,
That-
I know.
yeah.
3 bands that I love to this day. All right.
But anyway,
How are you going to see me now? So this song, of course, is about a message to his wife. Like, how are you going to look at me when I leave this institution? How are you going to see me now? That's my understanding.
Let you down in so many ways. How you gonna see me now? Please don't see me ugly, babe. 'Cause I know I let you down in so many ways.
So that was very Queen-esque outro, which is okay. That was the time. That was my own naivety about Queen. Actually, was I used to think Queen was the only band that did Queen. As I started investigating more bands from the 70s as I got older, because even again we're the same age, so bands of the 70s, I didn't necessarily investigate a lot of catalogs because already when I'm 1990, I'm 15 years old. I'm not going to go look. Oh, what came out in 74? To me, that's just before I was born. Why am I listening to music that what came out before I was born? So I didn't recognize that even as good as Queen was, and I loved them, but there were other bands that were doing that kind of stuff, and I didn't know that it was an actual genre of type sounding music. So this sound here reminded me of Queen, but Queen didn't have the trademark of this orchestra, bombastic, theatric type sound is what I'm getting at.
right. By the way, to tie 2 tangents together, that
Okay.
the first time that I ever heard what to me is probably my favorite Queen song, Stone Cold Crazy, was the
Wow.
Metallica cover. That's the first time I heard it.
That's mine too, to be
yeah.
fair. That was my time, the first time to hear that song was their cover. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, you have to look at a song like this for what it is. It is very well produced. They've done everything. It all works really well for a ballad like this on a rock album in 1978. Yes, you're putting a lot of qualifications on there. What they set out to do, they accomplished. It fits with this album. It's not, it's like, okay, you can see this story happening in the mind of someone here at this insane asylum.
All right. Now he's giving us that ballad. He's like, hey guys, don't leave yet. Just I got more for you. Don't you go just yet. Okay, so what does that first part remind you of? Let's do it again. It's another song. Very popular.
Yeah, let's do it again. Yeah.
Just this part here.
So, yeah, before the guitar kicks in, all I can hear is "Best I Can" by Queensryche, but I don't think that's what you're going for. So,
Kind of a mini fan of these guys. Enough that I heard it right away. So I'm sorry.
oh my gosh, of course, yes. The open to Bad Medicine. You're 100% right. I did not catch that at all.
Do you wonder, because Bad Medicine, if I remember, is like 87.
87 Slippery When Wet. So this is
When was
either
New
88 or
Jersey?
89. They toured for a long time off Slippery When Wet. And Slippery When Wet might have come out in late 86. But I think that this is 88. I remember the video for this. They gave people in the crowd handheld video cameras that used cassettes
That's
to
right.
record the video. So it looks like garbage. But that's one of the last great Bon Jovi songs is Bad Medicine.
They've had a few since then, but
I know, but no, I'm saying great with a capital G. They have some good songs after that, but to me, it's like, oh yeah, the first time I heard Bad Medicine, I'm like, oh man, this new Bon Jovi album is going to be great. And then other songs that I've heard from subsequent albums, I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds like Bon Jovi.
My favorite album theirs is Keep the Faith. I love that album. I think it's a great album. I'm not even a big Bon Jovi fan. They're a band that if you saw them live, I saw them live in 2008. I think it was like peak mature Bon Jovi before John started losing his voice and Richie was still in the band. It was the Lost Highway tour, and actually they played in Vancouver because they recorded that album. I think they've recorded quite a few albums in Vancouver, and as a special treat, they actually played the Lost Highway album track for track in order as their opening part of the concert. They played the whole album, then they went into their hits.
Okay.
It was a really cool experience. Yeah. So they played their whole album song for song, and then they went into their hits. It was like a 2-hour plus show. It was pretty cool. Anyway, so yeah, I heard that beginning. So when Bon Jovi does this intro, does not one person in the band know Alice Cooper's For Veronica's Sake?
Who produced the New Jersey album? That's the
Bruce
real question.
Fairburn.
Bruce Fairburn definitely knows this Alice Cooper album.
Yes,
because,
of course he does.
Yeah. I think that might be one of those, like we were sort of saying before about Tarantino and Oliver Stone. You might not remember, that you heard this because this isn't like a huge album. This isn't a single, none of that. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, I get this great idea for something, and it happens. Sometimes an artist will talk about like, yeah, we had this great song. And then, Keith Richards sat down and said, oh, actually kind of sounds like this, doesn't it? And you're like, oh, yeah, it sure does. Sorry, Keith. So it happens.
Yeah. Before we get into the song, another little tangent here. We forgot to mention, speaking of producers, the producer of this album is David Foster.
Yes.
And
who gets some songwriting credits throughout, by the way.
No, yeah, a little side note. Speaking of Victoria, he's actually from my home city, and he went to my high school. He's a graduate from my high school. So
very cool.
Yeah, he's a little bit older than me, but yeah, he's from my hometown. He too has had a few wives. He's on wife number 5 now. He's married to Catherine McPhee.
Oh yeah, you know what? I did know that. That's right. Yeah.
Bless his heart. Bless his heart. He's 74 and she's 40. Bless his heart.
Oddly enough, despite all of his drinking and substance problems, Alice Cooper is still on wife number 1 and only.
They're still married?
She stuck with him. She did leave him when he hit rock bottom because they had a very young child. She left him in the way that like he needed to kind of work through this, and they have never been divorced. So they've been married since the mid 70s. So by this point, he's married her, but she's a dancer. Yeah, she's a dancer on his Welcome to the Nightmare tour. Welcome to my Nightmare tour.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of her right now, and she's a lovely woman. Good for him.
She doesn't like tour and do every show, but she's still out there fairly regularly. I mentioned that his daughter Calico sometimes is out there. So there have been shows where both his wife and daughter are part of the stage show, being nurses and things who, women who alternatingly torture him and get tortured by him and enjoy helping the guillotine chop his head off, etc. So
it's fun. Good family activities.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Back to For Veronica's Sake. Here we go. Right there. Bad Medicine. Right there.
This song, it is indicated in the early lyrics. It's about a dog. So Veronica is a dog. It says,
I never caught that.
I got a dog in the city pound that I left behind. So Veronica is the dog that, this is not Alice as Alice. This is someone in that institution who's like, I got to get out of here for Veronica, you know? So it's like, I got a dog and there's no one to take care of this dog if I'm in here. So that's my motivation, which, you know, I think is, you know, obviously we've had characters who are motivated for the wife that's out there, for the family, for the life they left behind. And this guy's like, somebody's got to walk my dog. And it's just not happening. It is sort of one of those things where you're like, oh, this song is about a dog. This is a good one. You know, it's got some good rock stuff in it. It's back to Dick Wagner on this one. It does sort of make it a little bit sillier that it's about a dog. You know, that's who Veronica is. But I don't think it actually takes away. You know, there's a few love songs that are about dogs. You know, there's one called "Shannon Is Gone." I don't know who that's by, but it's about a dog. This is not the first song written to a dog, I guess.
Oh, okay. I never knew that it was about a dog. So that good.
Yeah.
Good for bringing it up. Yeah, it's a great bridge. That clean guitar sound. I love it. It's that classic rock and roll kind of glam rock sound of guitar, which I love. I hear it. It's easy for my ears to listen to that. I love it.
Right. The part that you played, that opening lyric is, I can see her howling all night at the lonely moon. They're going to give her the gas if I don't get there soon because you know, she's going to go to the pound. There's the parallel earlier in the song where he says, we both been put in cages. We got our shots and tags. I got my sweat and fist to shake. She's got her tail to wag, which is exactly why you need the lyrics to your album printed and something you can, because I had no idea what he was saying there.
That's great.
To shake. Yeah. So he's doing the parallel of him and this dog. It's like, look, I got it bad. My dog's got it really bad. All right.
Great imagery. Yeah, I love it. All right. So the next one is called Jackknife Johnny. Great name. Great. It's a great, again, that's a very theatrical type name for a character.
Yeah.
From his army confession of his military days.
Now, this is your Queensryche sound here.
You know, you're not wrong, actually. Yeah. You know, just imagine Jeff Tate on this vocal. Yeah, I was showing you that on the album there is, you know, of the inmates being let out of the asylum, one of them is in military fatigue. So that is Jackknife Johnny, who we see on the album. And yeah, I think this is another example of people that were there. 1978, you're dealing with Vietnam vets who fought for their country, and the war that they fought for was incredibly unpopular with a huge segment of the population. You know, just a tremendous tragedy being the war itself, but the soldiers who come home are treated terribly. This is not an isolated fictional incident, Jackknife Johnny. So I think that it's something that the term PTSD didn't exist in 1978, right. But all of these guys who were, you know, just being called upon to do just horrific things in the name of following orders. I can only imagine how many Jackknife Johnnies there were. The Jackknife Johnny that Alice got to know is probably way sadder than this guy in this song, you know, but it's like, I don't want to bum people. I don't want to bum people out that much. You have to understand the context of this moment in time to just this idea of the Vietnam vet who probably been home 3 or 4 years at this point, and probably can't find work. People don't want to cut him a break or anything. It's like, oh, you fought in that war. There's definitely some powerful phrasing in here for sure.
You still carry the shrapnel. You're shell shocked today. Dig it, Johnny.
Oh, Johnny.
Have you just lost your way? Or like denim and leather, are you faded and frayed? Institute lackeys with hot bourbon breath.
So it's great. I love the background vocals. Is that Macy again coming in?
I believe so, but honestly, she's only credited, I think, on that one song. It's a great point because, again, we have Kiki D, we do have his wife, we have Marcy. Those are the 3 females listed. I don't know that it's her on that song. She's the co-vocalist on Millie and Billy, so I think that it's only fair that she be credited. I don't know that she did any of the other songs, so I think that could be Kiki D, that could be his wife. It could be somebody that's uncredited entirely. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything as I do a quick check online, so I'm not quite sure who that is.
Them old vets gotta hate you for bringing home that BC girl. Jackknife Johnny, welcome to our world.
The part there always reminds me when he says "Welcome to our world." He's speaking to him coming to maybe to the institution, like, "Hey, welcome to our world, buddy."
Yeah,
it reminded me of the "Welcome to My Nightmare" theme.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like you're a part of this nightmare with me. Interesting. There's a line in this song where he refers to morphine and meth, which that meth is methadone. It's a simpler time before methamphetamine. I was just thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like, wait, I'm like, oh, it's not that meth. It's the meth that they give you to try and get you off of the heroin. Methadone. Yeah, fun moments in meth here on the show.
Yeah, I don't have a stinger for that. What do you call that?
Well, we need a jingle. Yeah,
jingle.
I'll talk to Doug in the jingles department and see if he can give us great moments in meth.
All right. So moving on to the last song on the album, the concept album. From the inside, we have Inmates.
Parentheses, we're all crazy.
Yes. Which is true. We're all crazy.
Agreed.
So now this song really showcases, in my mind, the stage production that we could have seen or heard.
If one were to go and check, Madhouse Rock Show is called The Strange Case of Alice Cooper. Earlier in it, he's dancing with a bunch of bottles of beer and different liquors and things like that. So there's some silly stage stuff, but then this is sort of everybody out on stage towards the end of it. So you're right for thinking that this should be a big theatrical moment. This is the entire cast is out there for So Long Farewell at the end of Sound of Music, So this is basically that moment where everybody who does get released, at least on the album.
Okay, got it. All right, here we go.
Something wrong. We just burned down the church while the choir within sang religious songs.
Right there, that's a great line right there. It's not like we did anything wrong. We just burnt down a church and killed a bunch of people.
When they talk about the train later, it's kind of the same thing. What I love about the violin in the beginning is the way that it builds, and then just it's very much like Psycho, the motif that would later be used in slasher movies, which didn't really exist. I mean, we talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but this is before Friday the 13th and before Halloween and all that. And obviously John Carpenter's Halloween theme is one of the best compositions of music that I've ever heard in my life because it's so perfect for the film. Yeah. But it's great because you're talking about how these crazy people, some of the things that they've done, having that sort of Psycho, the film, that Psycho feel is perfect to go with what they're singing about.
And it's not like we thought we was right.
We just played with the wheels of a passenger train that cracked on the tracks one night.
That's the part you're talking about there.
Yeah. Look, we just played with the wheels of a passenger train that cracked on the tracks one night. It's like, what? Is it my fault that the train derailed? Well, yes, but I was just trying to have fun.
I was just having
You know?
fun. That's right. Yeah, causing
Yeah.
chaos as we go.
Oh, Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her
Trying
mother
to be
40
bad.
whacks. So that's Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40
Oh,
whacks.
let's go.
Is-
Oh,
that's
okay.
basically right before where you jumped in. It's like a nice sort of little refrain in there.
Let me hear that again. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And don't think trying to be bad. No! An innocent crime seemed alright at the time.
Not necessarily mad.
We watch every day for the bus. And the driver would say, that's where lunatics stay.
I wonder if he's talking about us.
So when that first no chorus came in, I was
Yeah.
listening to this on my headphones jogging, and it made me jump. I wasn't expecting it. So when everyone yells no, I was like, oh, it actually startled me a little bit. It was it's great, but I didn't expect a bunch of people yelling no, like a chorus at me there.
Yeah, this song builds in such a nice way, and it does have the refrain. You know, the Lizzie Borden took an axe. I don't know if that is a young girl singing, but the female voice that they used
Yeah,
made sure
sounds
that it
very young.
sounded like a kid.
Yes.
There's a lot of great, stuff like that go through here. So there's so many layers to this song. It is the perfect ending for this concept album. You only had 10 songs to tell your story. Sometimes your concept albums are double albums. You can really dive into it a little bit more, but it probably works because there's not 4 or 5 other songs on here, slowing it down. This is the perfect ending for this album. It's tying together what this has been about as we spent time on the inside.
We're all crazy.
We're all crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
We're all crazy.
I just love this is the outro. This is what I mean. This is like the final act. Either they're running out of the building, but they're all singing together. You could almost make it like creepy. You could make it funny, but they all did the it's basically
Yeah, this is basically everybody in the company should pour off the stage in the wings and go out through the back door.
Yeah.
Like, that's how this should end. Yeah.
or even going through the crowd through the aisles.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. They
Yeah,
should
yeah.
definitely go straight through and walk out the back of the theater door. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, let's make this happen. Let's make this
Yeah.
happen. Okay, well, I know this was a big episode. I appreciate your time here, Christian, but the big moment has come. You
Yeah.
have to make a decision here. I'm going to go first because I think, again, like I said to Kaylee when she was on the show on our last music episode that we did, where I had her go last because nobody cares about me. You're the guest, so I'll
Wow.
get mine out of the way.
I want to
This
hear what
one-
yours is.
Okay, and maybe it's the same, but for different reasons. We'll find out. There was 2 that were playing a little bit for bottom, and doesn't make them bad songs
Yeah.
necessarily, but there's 2 that were battling out, and I actually came to a final decision during our discussion, which sometimes happens on the show where I have a pick, like you were saying, but as we go through it, I'm like, I got to make a pick here, and this is the reasons. Okay, the 2 that were battling out, maybe it's not going to be a surprise to anybody because I kind of hinted at it before, was How Are You Going to See Me Now, and then Millie and Billy. One, because of the nature of the composition. It's not the greatest. I hear How Are You Going to See Me Now, and I'm just like, I've heard this before. I can hear this on a Barry Manilow album, AM radio.
Well, and like I was saying, being familiar with Alice's catalog, he's done this song but better at least 3 times.
Okay, there you go.
So,
Yeah. Fair enough. So that was a reason. Then Millie and Billy comes along. I'm like, oh boy, what do I do here with this one? I'm going to tell you my pick between the 2 and why. My worst pick for the album is Millie and Billy. The reason being is you can take that storyline away and it doesn't take away from the concept album portion of it. How Are You Going to See Me Now is as it's not the greatest composition for a ballad. It's kind of boring, but for the concept part of the album, this is very autobiographical for Alice talking to his wife, saying, "How are you going to see me now when I leave this?" Like he's reflecting on himself. He made a little promotional video for it. That's how much it meant to him. So I couldn't be like the producer and say, "Alice, you got to take this off the record." It's too personal. It's for his wife. It's about his own personal journey, why he's in the institution. Whereas Million Billy is a fantasy story about two natural born killers, killing a husband, put him in the trunk, chopping him to pieces. I love the story, don't get me wrong. And then even the singing, the female singer, bless her heart. I know you talked about how she sounded better than you remember. I'm remembering that she doesn't sound good. And the part that really, it reminded me of Jim Carrey in The Cable Guy when he's talking to Matthew Broderick's character Between the Glass, and he says the same thing she says in the song, "Oh, Billy."
Yes. Okay.
The moment she says, "Oh, Billy," and she says it just like Jim Carrey does in that movie, The Cable Guy, I couldn't. I was done. It took me out of it. It just took me out of it. So
well, interestingly, I heard this so long ago that I didn't even know who Jim Carrey was. He wasn't even on In Living Color yet. So
fair enough.
the song was not colored by that for me.
Here's that scene. Just
Okay.
the roof.
I'm here for you. Oh, Billy.
I now when I hear that song, "Oh, Billy," and she says, "Oh, Billy,"
Oh, Billy.
I can't help but think of that freaking scene. So
I
takes me
get
out
it.
of
And look, sometimes like, and look, that's something from a movie that, millions, if not billions of people see. There can sometimes be like just a turn of phrase that like you remember something from your own life and like, yeah, I can't with that song because they say this, they do it like that. It reminds me of this person. I completely respect that choice because before I did my re-listen, and I hadn't listened to this album in its entirety in a while before a couple days ago, in my mind, my pick was going to be Million Billy because of pretty much everything you said. And then I was reminded of the lyrics and just how great they are to talk about chopping him up and putting him in baggies. Her vocal, Marcy Levy or Levy, I was like, oh, in my mind, she didn't sing it that well. And to me, I think she sounds great. Obviously, you can make the case that she's no Kiki D, who's elsewhere on this album. Then I had landed on a different song, which was The Quiet Room, because I'm like, but the rock part of it is amazing and it's important to the overall story. So with apologies to the importance of the message, and I appreciate it, you're making me take a song off this album. It's Jackknife Johnny, because we didn't use the term cringe back then, but bringing home that VC girl always stands out as, you could have said something different. And I get it, because if you're being shouted at by people in town, it's like, well, Johnny comes home with his Vietnamese wife. It's like, oh, and you brought that VC girl. I'm like, I get all of that. But the story works fine if Jackknife Johnny's just a guy in the background and we never actually find out his story. There's 10 songs on the album, and at different times I thought that I was going to have 3 different ones. So I landed on this, and I don't hate that song, but it's the one that I'm like, it's the one I could do without. It is slow. How Are You Gonna See Me Now is not great, but for the reasons you said that you left it, it's like, well, he's singing to his wife. It is important to the story. Jackknife Johnny, much like the way you see Million Billy, we don't necessarily need his story in here.
Yeah, I guess I kept his story because I envisioned he's John Rambo. This is John.
Yeah,
this is Jackknife Johnny Rambo with Alice Cooper. I'm envisioning the two together. They're about the same age, Stallone and Alice. So I'm picturing they were in the same institution together. I'm fan fictioning that storyline.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think that
right.
that makes sense for John Rambo.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Christian, for being on. Before you leave, let us know where people can find you.
Yeah, so I have my own personal podcast, The Blackcast, BLADTCAST. We do music-related conversations sometimes. There's a lot of interviews. There's a lot of movies, but it's kind of whatever I want it to be, which is probably why that podcast isn't more successful, because it's not the same thing week after week. I've been doing it for almost 13 years. We had our 600th episode not too long ago with special guests Dennis Miller and John Lovitz. You want to seek that out because you want to hear great SNL stories. That's the place to go. And as we mentioned, Who Are These Broadcasters is live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Who Are These Podcast YouTube channel, but you can also get it as an audio podcast. I appreciate Ryan asking me, but also checking out the show. One day, I'll make sure that Eric Zane shows up here. I'm determined.
Oh yeah, I mean that'd be fantastic. I'd love to have Eric on. I mean, I don't know if I can handle his hair. We'll probably have to lower the definition because his hair is so fantastic. But
Yeah.
appreciate. Yeah, put a good word in for me. He's a great guy. I love your show. Like I said, I've never missed an episode of Who Are These Broadcasters. Apologies for saying it right. I don't know.
No, it's fine.
It's a fantastic, fun show. It's very light, very fun. I mean, you take the mick out of the public, people that are out there on the mic who just say and do silly things because we as humans are silly people, and it's fun to watch other people fail, not just our channel. So
Yeah, the perfect example of how we don't take the show too seriously is that we have a recurring segment called Who Are These Bears? Whenever a bear ends up in somebody's yard, we're there to talk about it. I got a new one yesterday, and I'm very excited about sharing the bears in the future.
Nice. Awesome. Can't wait. All right. Remember, in front of every silver lining, there's a cloud. And today for Ryan, it was Million Billy. And for Christian, it was Jackknife Johnny.